Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. My name is Anastasia Tsimiklis. I'm the CMO of Explorance, and I'm thrilled to be talking today with Michael a little bit about Explorance World, which is our annual flagship conference gathering in Boston this year, where we're excited to welcome leaders in L&D, talent, and organizational development to talk about really important topics, including what Michael will be keynoting about later in June. A little context about how Michael and we met in Boston. We had over lunch a few months ago, and we talked about, of course, the state of L&D. And Michael said something that kind of stopped me in my tracks about L&D and the importance about L&D proving impact, performance to the business. And he said that this is the moment of truth for L&D and talent, and kind of stopped me in my tracks. And we kind of started talking about, well, this is probably an important topic, something that would resonate with our audience, with our customers. And that was kind of the genesis of the subject for Michael's keynote at Explorance World. Explorance World is taking place in Boston, June 16th to the 19th, 2026. It's taking place at Boston University, and we'll talk a little bit more later on how you can take advantage of the conference and be a part of it.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I mean, it's a really interesting time for learning and development and in cooperation with the Brandon Hall Group. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer, one of the principal analysts here at the Brandon Hall Group. We're very excited about getting at this topic. And when we say getting at this topic, we're talking about it's not theory and it's not conversation. It's not a situation where we're like, we'll get to it. This is impactful, immediate, necessary, mandatory, can't not do it. And that is, we're spending so much time and energy on developing learning. Everyone in this audience is spending a lot of time and resources, dollars, sweat and tears, trying to get great learning to have its effect on learner engagement, learner motivation, upskilling and reskilling, accelerating the needs of the business through better learning, developing cultures for lifelong learning. Tremendous amount of effort being put in place, but how do you know if it's working? What's the tangible, measurable outcome? And what we've seen in our research is that organizations still rely a lot on what we call learning-centric metrics, and that is completion rates, learner progression through courses, course completions, certifications that are handed out. But is that really translated into someone is bigger, faster, stronger? Or has an enhanced level of skill development or competency development, which leads to greater individual, team, and organizational performance? Can learning actually take credit for improving business outcomes? Can we show that we're directly contributing to the top and bottom line of the organization? Can we show that we're mitigating risk? Can we show that we're building the overall talent readiness of our organization, or keeping learning and talent development the sustainable competitive advantage it needs to have for their respective organization in a hyper-competitive global marketplace? Can we just draw a point A to point B line and say, there it is, this is how we did it? And without all of these steps in between, it's impossible to do that. It's impossible just to say, someone learned something and therefore the company met its margins, met its growth potential, was able to successfully launch a product, improve its NPS or customer satisfaction scores. It's too big a leap of faith. And so what we want to kind of talk about and discover in this keynote is, how do we put the trail of breadcrumbs in place? How can we create the steps to show that learning is having that direct impact? And as a result of that direct impact, the business wins, the business is successful, and people are successful in that effort. So as you and I have talked about, and your team as well, is there are certain things you have to do in order to make that happen. The first one is really looking at how you're developing learning. Are you building learning from the outside in rather than the inside out? Great example of that is when we think about our learning objectives, we think about them as, if we watch someone perform based on that new level of learning, what would that look like? What would be the observable, demonstrable behaviors that we would look for in order to say that person got it? That person understands it, grasps the concept of the learning. And so their behaviors are there and they're well on their way to improved or elevated performance, or both. And so we don't necessarily take that point of view when we're building learning. We oftentimes start with a subject matter expert and someone that can design courses, and we sit down and we basically say what we think people need to know. And then we project out that inside out approach. So that inherently leaves the door open to, well, what do we measure that against? Versus starting from the outside in where we know what great looks like, and we walk backwards into what does learning have to look like and act like in order to achieve that behavior? So that's one piece that we have to figure out. The other thing measuring for impact is we oftentimes measure based on lag measures. So think about lag measures like being the final score on a scoreboard. By then, there's nothing you can do. The game has been played, the score is final, and there's not a remediation, course correction, nothing we can do to change that score. And so we have a tendency to set up learning measurement in a lag standpoint. We put ourselves in a position that nothing can be done. And what we need to do to get better impact and measurability with learning and eventually drive that ROI is we have to kind of think more of the analogy of a ruler. We have to think about, imagine having a ruler where it only had halfway through the ruler a 6-inch mark and then the ruler ends. That's kind of, everyone would be like, well, how do you use a ruler like that? Like there's not enough lines on it. And that's what we're doing when we develop nothing but lag indicators. We need more lines on our rulers. So we need to bring back those smaller milestone measurements along the way that give us better insights into our learners progressing through their learning in a way that behavior will change and performance will improve or become different or both. And so we need those all the lines on the ruler. So that means that our learning measurement model has to give us the opportunity to step in often and see how are learners doing what they're learning. Are they able to apply it successfully? Where are the breakpoints? Where are the places where they're falling down or don't understand it? And how can we, most importantly, use those extra lines on the ruler to be able to remediate the learning, to be able to step in and say, we can't leave you hanging. You definitely have to learn it. Let's come up with some additional steps in order to get learning to happen. And that's where the whole personalization kicks in. So we need those extra lines in order to put us in a position where we just don't wait to the end to see whether or not learning did anything. We want to be able to measure often so that we can step in if we don't think it's on track. And then the last piece, which is probably the inevitability of all of this and that learning and development organizations have to embrace, is your report card for whether learning was effective or not is not in your hands any longer. The report card, the grades for whether learning did its job, is going to be with the business stakeholders. Because if you're joining hands with them, and arm in arm, and learning is to help them meet their business objectives, their goals, then ultimately they're going to be the judgment factor in the learning. Did the learning do what it was supposed to do? And they're going to strictly measure it based on a lot of learning took place and we didn't meet our goals or objectives, or we did, or we're somewhere in the middle. And they're ultimately going to judge whether or not learning did its job. And that's a bit of a challenge because we want to be so focused on our activity, how busy we were. How time conservative or how time extensive we were, what were the constraints or what were the opportunities. And we want people to give us credit for the time that we put in. But ultimately, if you didn't move the needle on performance or individual team behavior that leads to better performance, then in essence, all of that effort, what did it amount to? So that's kind of what we're going to be tackling to kind of just create a new self-awareness level.
I'm excited, Michael. I think we're going to try and help our audience shift from just measuring activity is important, but we want to help them make the shift from just measuring activity to predicting even performance and impact to the business. And this is going to give L&D leaders an opportunity to move away from being a support function, perhaps, to really being in the driver's seat and proving their impact and their value to the business, which will put them in a much better position. And this is kind of the genesis of your keynote. The title is Performance or Irrelevance, the moment of truth for L&D and Talent. It's a little bit of a sneak peek what Michael will be speaking about on June 18th. You'll be speaking, Michael, on Thursday, June 18th at 1 p.m. We really look forward to your keynote. It's going to bring a lot of value to our customers, to all of the community that's attending Explorance World. And we're offering a bit of a special discount, if you will, for our listeners. So if you want to join us, there's the QR code on our screen. Please feel free to scan. We also have a day pass if you can only join us for the day of Michael's keynote. We have a free day pass. Again, we look forward to seeing you, meeting you in Boston, and I think there's going to be a lot of value, and we'll learn a lot from your keynote, Michael. So I'm excited, and thank you again for joining us.
It's my pleasure. And also too, I think that my keynote is just a thread of the great takeaways and collaboration and moments of truth that you'll be able to learn during the entire conference. I think it's a conference that's really set up to learn and to collaborate and best practice share and create that wisdom of crowds. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that what I'm talking about is only one thread of a larger piece, just part of that larger fabric. And we all have to kind of come together to figure this out. And this is a tremendous forum. Strongly encourage you to come. It's a tremendous forum to be able to learn from others as well as learn from experts and be able to walk away with something that's tangible for you, benefits for your organization, you as a professional. So look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Good.